I finally got my Sky Scale. Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about the process of unlocking it and what the Sky Scale itself is like. I don't have the 3 masteries for it yet. I'm working on those now, but let's talk about the process of unlocking the Sky Scale and where it fits in among the many other mounts in Guild Wars 2. First off, out of all the mounts that I've unlocked so far in Guild Wars 2, this was my favorite to unlock. This one had the best story in my opinion, and also had what I find to be the most satisfying grind for the most part, except for one thing I'm going to talk about, which is waiting on Goric. We're going to get there. Other than that, I feel like it actually was pretty simple to do. I did it over the course of 3 days, and I didn't really have too much difficulty with it. It was a lot of running around and a lot of backtracking, I guess you could say, but after you get through the first hurdle, which I think is probably the worst part of the whole thing, where it's just going around Dragonfall 3 times to do different things across that whole zone while you're still having to deal with a meta event going on around you, which means that the map will reset and then you won't have waypoints. Once you get through that, it's actually pretty enjoyable. And I don't think that part is terrible. I think it does ensure you're going to be around Dragonfall. You're going to see those events. You're going to see those character interactions. And that's really cool. I like that a lot. But once you get past that set, you get to the first waiting for Goric. And this first one wasn't too bad, because I still needed to go back and beat all of the Return to achievements, as many as I could to tier 3, so that I had enough materials for later. So I was like, well, you know, that's not a huge thing. We'll just go start doing those. But waiting for Goric comes up quite a few times. And once you have that done, where you have all the materials you need, then it just becomes, okay, I guess I'm going to either go play something else, or go work on World v World or something, because I don't want to advance any further until I have this thing. I know it's within reach and I want it. But once you get past that step, then it becomes really fun, in my opinion. Because then it's, hey, you need to go do this thing. You have these, I'm trying not to spoil too much for the sake of it, but you have these eggs and you need to go hatch them, and each one is tied to a different element, so each one needs something different to be able to hatch it, trigger it. I find that really satisfying and really cool. Defeating a bunch of enemies, reviving a bunch of allies, or going all back around the world and talking to people that are tied to these individual elements, or doing something that's tied to these individual elements, I found really satisfying. And I mentioned in the roller beetle one that just going around the world and killing things that were shaped like the roller beetle to make the saddle was kind of unsatisfying. I wanted like a lore reason to be going and killing those things that look like beetles or were round. Whereas in this quest line, all of it is, hey, there's characters that you've met before that could help you with this. There's natural events in the world that could help you with this. You want to hatch that fire egg. Well, maybe you should go stand in magma from all around the map, all around the different parts of the world to be able to help warm this thing up. And I found stuff like that really satisfying. This step was my favorite, but again, when you reach the end of that step, you get to waiting for Goric again. And at this point, I only had 2 Return to achievements left to go, because I'd already been working on them up until this point, because I knew I would have to do them. And so I went and finished those, but there's another waiting for Goric coming, which is pretty annoying to me. And a lot of people don't, this may not matter to you at all if you have like crazy amounts of time dedicated to this game. And in a lot of ways I do, because of my job, right? But if you don't have a lot of time to play and you finish the step that you're on and you're like, oh man, this is great, I'm working towards the next thing, I want to put in like a couple more minutes before I stop playing today, and then you get that, hey, wait 2 hours. Oh, okay, well, I guess I'm done with this for today. Either way, I'm one of those people that absolutely would have just stayed up and grinded this thing out, because I want to get this video out talking about the Sky Scale. And that was, it felt arbitrary, whereas other things, there's a thing coming up that time gates it that I didn't feel was very arbitrary. That made sense to me in the lore of the world. And that is this next step, which is to feed the thing multiple times. And you can do it over the course of 3 days as compared to over the course of 12 if you want, but you do need 12 of an item. And it is a time gate, but I didn't mind this one as much as waiting for Goric, because it meant that I could get all this stuff together and then I could just focus on other games for a couple days. Just log in, feed it, focus on something else. Come back in, feed it, focus on something else. And you may say, well, Trey, there's more story stuff you could have been doing. There's more other things you could have been doing in the game. You didn't need to just focus on the sky scale. But you don't understand. I want my sky scale. I wanted my sky scale. That was all I could think about. If I was in Guild Wars 2 and I saw somebody on a sky scale, I have to wait on that. And so it was just, hey, log in, feed the sky scale, do something else. And I didn't mind that as much as I did the waiting for Gorek 2 hours each time. But this is a scavenger quest, almost. Scavenger hunt, I guess, where you go across the world and fight specific enemies to hopefully get a drop. I found the drops weren't too annoying, but I'm sure that all depends on luck, right? They're not guaranteed. Champion enemies can drop them more. The one that took the longest for me was the Karka leg for some reason, but everything else was pretty reasonable and it didn't take too long to get. I really enjoyed getting the toys and be able to go back and, again, talk to different people that I've met over the course of this journey and be able to get something to play with my sky scale later, which is a great sequence. The lost sky scale step got a little annoying, but it wasn't bad. The most annoying thing about it was having to, some of them were tied to specific events, which means I had to wait for those events. And it meant that even if I was close to finishing a step for that or finding another section where the sky scale was, if that event popped up or it was almost time for it, I had to stop and go wait for that because I had to have that event and I could do the other parts whenever I wanted. But one thing I really like about it is it led me to jumping puzzles that I had never found before. And over the course of completing this, I actually completed the Help the Children event for the Winter's Day tree home instance node. And just going back and finding these new jumping puzzles, either doing them legitimately or working out ways to get around them. I'm not very good at jumping puzzles, so this step took a while. But I had fun with it, and it wasn't annoying to me. I had a really good time. From there, we get to what is probably the most fun step of it all, which is playing with the sky scale. That was really enjoyable, upped that bond quite a bit, and was really having a great time with that. Then it was, hey, let's go make a saddle. And I was like, yeah, all right, I got all the materials needed. I'll spend the gold that's required, make that saddle, and then, hey, go to 27 different maps to close a single rift on each. And it's not a bad step, but you're at the point now where you have the saddle. You have to go to a specific point on the map to be able to ride it. This is your sky scale and you know it. I feel like at that step, they could have just went ahead and let you summon it whenever you want. But once you finish those rifts, then you have finished the achievement. I get why they didn't, because you're teaching the sky scale to be your mount, but something about, hey, it's yours, here's a whistle to call it, but you can only use this whistle in these specific spots. Maybe give me an item that lets me call it instead, because I really just wanted the freedom of being able to fly around on it, Either way, not a terrible step. 27's a lot, especially compared to some of the other numbers of stuff in this, and this was a long collection. This took me more time than the Griffin. This took me more time than the Roller Beetle. Part of that was the time gate and all the waiting for Gorek stuff, but the other part of it is just a really long collection. But it's so worth it. Where does the sky scale sit along with all the other mounts in this game? Oh man, the sky scale's pretty dang great. So it's not as fast as the Griffin. It's not as fast on the land as the Jackal, right? It can't leap across long distances from the ground like the Raptor, and it can't go quite as high easily as the Springer, right? But it can do a little bit of all of that in a way that I find really satisfying. Hovering, being able to go just straight up and hover to avoid enemy attacks if I need to AFK, or if I need to check an achievement or a map or something like that, is great. I haven't used it a lot getting into combat, but the few times I have, I've missed just about every time, but I know eventually I'll get that radius down, and that's really satisfying. It's also just, there's something about, hey, I have this dragon that I raised, that I hatched, that I raised, that I tamed, that I played with, that I trained, This is my sky scale. That gives me an attachment to it that is kind of separate from all the other mounts. This sky scale is special to me. And that's not even to count the fact that with the sky scale, I can now go incredible lengths across the map once I'm in the air with the Griffin, or once I have the masteries. If I can get somewhere high up and start flying with the Griffin, I could theoretically switch if I need to be able to hover from there, anything like that. There's so many cool things I'm going to be able to do that I can't do yet that I'm really excited for. The sky scale so far is my favorite mount. The Griffin is great, and I'm probably still going to use the Griffin for most of my flying, because the Griffin can just continue gaining height if you use your dive and come back up right. Right now, the sky scale doesn't have anything like that. Maybe with the masteries it will. But for sheer utility of jump up, roll through the air, land to get where I need to go quickly, or hey, I need to fly for a short distance, I'm good. I can get there, barrel roll, fly straight to it. The sky scale is unmatched in that regard. And I think that as I continue to play, I will only find more situations where the sky scale is absolutely perfect for traversal in a way that every other mount was kind of a specific tool, right? You'd reach into the toolbox and get what you need for this specific situation. Whereas the sky scale is kind of like a multi-tool. It's a Swiss Army knife. It's not as good as a wrench. It's not as good as a screwdriver. But in a pinch, it's going to do the job just fine. And it's one I'm probably going to carry around with me a lot more than a whole toolbox. So I love the sky scale so far. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Do you think the collection was too much? Do you think the time gates were too much? Because this takes a while. And I was able to gather most of the stuff through the use of the return to achievements. I didn't have to spend a lot of gold. I think I spent around 44 gold in total because I bought a grow lamp. But I can see where you easily could spend a lot more if you didn't want to go through all the hustle of going through each of the hassle, I guess not hustle. Sorry, I'm thinking about the sky scale of going to all the different maps all the time. Because there were a couple different items that could have made that faster that I could have crafted or bought. But on the whole, I love my sky scale. I need to get a skin for it now, and I'm excited to do that because, man, this thing's cool. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and until next time, I've been Trey. This has been the Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. The SCKYSCALE have to offer.